Hey everybody, thank you for stopping with us again. Muse by Muse. This week is 4th of July week, and I think no better series to talk about right now. Unsinkable, which is an audio series that's coming out that definitely something you have to listen to. It's just such a great audio series. We have we have MIsha Crosby and John Mason, who
Mawson,
create Mawson,
yeah,
who
Mawson.
created the series. First of all, what was it about bringing this story, which is a true life story, to an audio series? John?
Sure. So I used to be in the Merchant Navy as a deck officer for many years, and so this story, which is a true story of a cargo ship in the Second World War, was one that's kind of baked into our heritage, if you like. So I knew the story, and I actually wrote a screenplay, a movie screenplay version back in sort of 2011, and it did the rounds, and it got a lot of sort of positive chat about it, and quite a lot of people said, well, it would make a great, maybe you should do it as a TV series, there's such a big story here. So I then rewrote it as a TV series, various iterations, extending it, bringing in more of the outside story. And then the key moment was when a friend of mine, Jack Bowman from Audio Marvels in London, was over in, I think, February 2020, just before COVID hit. And he was here on an audio panel. And he talked about this. He read the screenplay, he loved it. And he said to us, and we met actually with Misha because he's done some audio work as well. And he and I have collaborated on a lot of stuff, that this could make a great audio movie. And we both went, what on earth is an audio movie? And Misha can take it from there if you like.
They proceeded to tell us that, hey, just imagine a high-level feature film, full blockbuster sound design, orchestral score, possibly delivering in Dolby Atmos, but without the pictures. And I was like, that's interesting. I mean, you may know a little about John and myself's background, but it's mostly been film and television. At least certainly for me, for the last 20 years ago, it's primarily 20 years or so. It's primarily been dealing with a visual medium, and so John and I kind of looked at it as initially a possibility, and then this was around at the time a little thing called COVID-19 had come along. So the ideas of us putting this together as a feature film had somewhat had its brakes put on it. And so we're like, hey, this is maybe something we could actually do right now, and maybe isolate those actors and work remotely to an extent as much as we could. And so then we proceeded to start putting those teams together, as it were. We went over to the UK. Jimmy Boyle over there had a team, him and George Riley. They'd worked extensively on shows like Band of Brothers, HBO's World War II series, and so they had some great World War II sound effects in their libraries. Also worked on, James Bond, Wonder Woman 1984, things like the Northman recently, and then with Stephen and Sam, Stephen Engelman, we approached it as we would approach any feature film. We thought about these themes, what we were trying to get across with the feelings of those, what score might be appropriate for certain characters, certain scenes, and just notated it exactly the same way, just without the pictures.
Mm-hmm. And what attracted us to Stephen Endelman and his composition as a movie composer was we really felt we wanted an epic feel to it, a David Lean style epic movie type feel, and that's something he's very comfortable to deliver. And talking to him, he just has this massive knowledge base of how music works and what works in different circumstances. And he, once we were getting towards locking down the episodes, he was able to deliver us some just amazing sounds that really help take you into each scene, so you subconsciously know where you are and who you're with. Right. Because it's augmented in the music.
Certain ships, have their own themes, certain characters as well. And it's also, playing that balance, and this is true of film as well, playing that balance of like, when is music right and when is it not, when is it stepping on things, when is it just allowing it to fill out that world. And so there was a lot of back and forth in in playing with those things. Initially, we'd actually tried to approach the sound design and the music at the same time, but it became very apparent that that wasn't going to work. Like because there was no picture there, the sound design, as it were, was filling out the frame, and it needed to fill out that frame first to then see what space we had left to augment the music in over the top.
Yeah. By chance, did you ever look back at some of the old radio serials to try and like figure out like how you wanted to go back? Because like I listen to Sirius XM, sometimes I like hearing those audio stories from back in the day. And I remember like for my age group, when they had the Star Wars movies on audio only, you heard it on the radio, and it was like kind of like a movie. Did you go back and try and like to kind of replicate or even get some suggestions on what for this, something like this?
So yeah, I don't know if we went back to the 1930s and listened to those old radio plays. What I can say is, listen, there was some inspiration along the lines for some guys whose footsteps we have certainly trodden in. There's the likes of Dirk Maggs, who's done some wonderful audio dramas over the years, and really, I think, is responsible for elevating the bar in that field. Even Andrew Sewell, who's a partner on this at B7 Media, they've really tried to open up the pathway for cinematic audio in this realm. And then we wanted to do what we could to try and put something out there of the highest standard and elevate it again.
And we listened to some of what we did do was listen to what was coming out now.
Yeah, that's
what
true.
standard was like, and we know we listened to a lot of stuff. Perhaps we know most recently the Sandman when we were working on that, and we were listening to that and listening to their sound design, and thinking to ourselves, you know what, this is getting really good, but we must and can do this better. We can have no narration. I managed to rewrite the whole thing for the ear without any narration, for example. Whereas the Sandman is essentially a book, and the author, actually Neil Gaiman, is narrating in it.
Right.
And we didn't
There's
want
a big distinction, like John said, between audiobook and an audio movie, which is why we've tried to make that distinction.
Yeah, and the voice cast for this is amazing. What a great lineup! When you were getting that cast together, what were their thoughts, and were they like eager to jump on board? Because it's so different, especially with the way you're talking about it. It's such a different. It's the next level.
That's what we've been for all the time. Yeah.
So the cast was so supportive. I remember Natalie's excitement, even when she came in. She was in Prague. She was shooting another movie, and then we recorded around her schedule. And whether she'd done bits and pieces of audio before, we kind of went besides the point to her. She said, no, like an audio movie. I've never done anything like this. And the cast involved. I mean, there's a certain thing, and this is not true of necessarily cast, but it's certainly true of agents and business people in Hollywood. It's like everyone loves to be first to be second, right? And so once Brian was on board, all of a sudden it's easy to get Malkovich, it's easy to get Thomas, it's easy to get Natalie. And so there's a certain momentum that builds, and maybe not just even in Hollywood. I mean, that's just a momentum maybe in any form of business, you know?
Yeah.
Some of the actors we knew. I know Harry Hamlin, we've worked together on some stuff, and I called him up and said, Harry, I've written, and he knew about this. I'd workshops and stuff, and he knew my writing, and he liked it. And I called him up and said, listen, Harry, there's this character I've written. He has no redeeming features. He's a coward. He's a drunk. He whines. He's always on the wrong side of everything. And I thought of you, and he just laughed and said, just tell me when and where, and I'll be there. And he was great, and he got it instantly.
And really playing against type as well. He was very committed, just jumped in, feet first, face first to that role, who, as John said, is thoroughly unlikable and just crushes it.
And Brian said, he's playing a good guy, if you've listened to it. He's effectively the moral core of the story. And he said to us, I don't often get to play roles like that, because he was in the middle of doing Succession. But he also, we said, what attracted you to this? And he was kind enough to say that he loved the script, which is obviously something, a writer, pretty nice to hear. And he said, he revealed that the first 9 years of his acting career, he was on a radio play. He loves the medium, and he loves having to put on a costume or wait for lighting or go on green screen and just create it in your mind and create the character and the role.
And that's what I love about it. It brings me back to when I was a kid. Like I said before, like when you hear these things on the radio and you're kind of like you're letting your mind take where the story is and dictating it, which is awesome. I miss a lot of those because it brings so much creativity when you're listening to it and to what you want to do in the future. And I really do miss this medium. Uh, are you hoping this is going to expand the platform even more, and that we're going to see more of these in the future? Are you both working on something else that's going to be something similar?
So it's TBD, at least on an audio perspective. And so for this specific project, there's certainly been IP that expands this story to go on, right? Like the one of the characters in Unsinkable, in fact, goes on to lead season 2 of that. And not only we expanded the IP there from, you know, possibly an audio version, but we had always planned to release this on a visual medium too. And so, you know, we're having talks about taking John had 5 hours of television script from season 1, and then actually we were able to develop alongside as that process of making the audio better, going through it. It's like with anything, right? It's a constant editing process, whether it's writing, whether it's producing, whether it's actually editing, right? We found it got tightened up. So those scripts we found are better. The feature film version as well, which this whole thing was derived from. John's initial script, it was called the San Demetrio, which was an excellent script. And that's how he even lured me into this endeavor that's now taken up about half a decade of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And John, where would you like to see this next?
I would love to see this on the screen. Obviously, when I started to write this as a feature film and then as a TV series, one of the things that made me want to do it is that well, there was actually a film made of this story in 1943 called the San Demetrio London, and it's a fine film. And they had some advantages, like ships of the period were, you know, available, and they had one that was similar to the ship herself. But obviously, the special effects are pretty clanky, and it was very much supporting the merchant navy type piece. So it's very shouty. Everybody shouts all the time, you know. And I just felt it would be great to make it again, you know, with all the effects one can do now. And that was validated by looking at something like Greyhound, Tom Hanks' production of the C.S. Forester book, because it looks amazing. And as an ex-seafarer, I can tell you, I look like a hawk, and there are hills, small hills I die on. With seafaring stories, and you know, it's proven that you can do them. You can do the special effects and make it look not just, you know, incredibly exciting, but also very accurate. And that was, I think, what was the genesis for me wanting to tell this story again. That we could do it in the visual medium, and I think my strongest wish amongst all the screenplays that I've written, and I have written many, is to see this one come out, because it's a great story and it will look and be, you know, an amazing experience for an audience.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see that on the big screen, especially in an IMAX theater, really big, really engulf you. I could see that so well, and hopefully we'll see this pretty soon, because I love to see this on the big screen. But before I let you go, MIsha, I wanted to ask the technical aspect with Dolby Atmos. We're seeing a lot of people use it now, especially in audio and music, and using that type of format. Applying this to this audio movie. How do you feel like if this technology wasn't created, it would still be the same, because it just engulfs you in a way that you're sitting in the middle of pretty much pure sound, and it expands the story? What would it be like if what is it about Dolby Atmos that just makes this even bigger and bolder?
So the main thing about Atmos, and there are many different sound formats, as you know, stereo itself gives you 2 channels. You've got 5.1, which gives you surround with that bass channel, and Atmos now that gives you, really the main difference being it gives you height, right? Those extra channels above really can then start giving you a sense of that 3D space in a way that wasn't necessarily possible before. And I say wasn't necessarily because there was still absolute magicians when it came to stereo, and even with 2 channels, making things feel like they come from behind. And quite frankly, even the work that Jimmy and George had done initially with us, on that stereo mix, because we actually worked from stereo first. Yes, we put it in a Dolby session, knowing that we were going to mix it in Dolby afterwards, but the majority of the initial work was done with stereo. So it would be different, but maybe not as different as you would think. The Atmos, I think, elevates it just that step further of really feeling the immersion because of the height channels. And yeah, it's a format that is constantly being, you know, expanded, and it's also very adaptable depending on what system you have too. The other aspect I'll talk on real quick with sound is, you know, we did a binaural mix on this too, which will be put out, which will use the Atmos renderer in there as well, which allows then those objects and the different things to be placed very specifically in the space, which again add to that feeling that you have of the immersiveness.
Awesome.
And also, I think the story itself has a lot of verticality in it. You know, you have waves over the ship, you have planes flying overhead, you have the height of the things inside the ship, going down to the bottom of the engine room, or, you know, up to this there. So there's a lot of verticality.
That's
and
what we did.
Dolby Atmos is fantastic for that.
Yeah, what we did is we actually went through and specifically made notes when we were going through some of the Atmos passes of like, how could we add height in the mix to this situation? We had moments, of course, we knew that would really work for, like John said, like the moments in the ship where people are calling from above and you can like then feel them from above. Moments where, you know, certain very large waves are coming to kill people. Like these, these were all.
Of course, Ben Wilkins, who, you know, won the Oscar for his sound mix on Whiplash. He did the Dolby, oversaw the Dolby Atmos mix for us. So, you know, he's a bit of a genius.
Yeah, no, he was excellent. Him and Sean Higgins did a lot of wonderful work.
I know I've been playing with Dolby Atmos and trying to figure it out and learn it, and it's just so fascinating how much you could do with it and do with that space. So it's really cool to hear from the professionals like where this is going. But before I let you go, John, I got to give you the honors. How can people listen to this and experience this for themselves?
Well, the first 2 episodes will launch on July 10th on Wondery Plus. In fact, the first 2 episodes will be available free worldwide, anywhere you want to. After that, it's on the Wondery Plus platform. We also have inside the episodes videos, which will go out as companion pieces. There will be one will go out just which is an introduction to the show. Will go out first a few days before the episodes, and then a couple of days after each episode release, there'll be an inside the episode. So for those who want to sort of get more background to the story, how we made it, what, you know, interviews with the guys, documentary stuff, it's all in the inside the episodes after that. So, you know, enjoy, we say, just enjoy.
MIsha, John, you created something that's just so incredible. I enjoyed it. We're going to put a link in the descriptions so you could follow and you could listen to it for yourself on July 10th. Thank you so much for stopping with us. Really appreciate it. And really I think a lot of people when they listen to this, are going to enjoy it and love this story, especially in this format. It's so well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was great, Mike.
Very much appreciated, Michael. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.